Status quo is the enemy.
We must think differently.
Get better, faster.
Companies don't change, innovate, and transform. People do. Welcome to Innovate for the Future. Listen in as Dirk drills down deep with leaders and innovators from within distribution and beyond who are disrupting markets and changing the way business is done. Those who are innovating for the future. Innovating for the future.
It's time to change the rules.
Become the disruptor rather than the disrupted.
We own the future.
Are you ready? You can create your future. You own your future. And your journey of innovating for the future begins now. With your host, Dirk Beveridge.
Welcome back to Innovate for the Future. I am Dirk Beveridge, your host and the founder of Unleash WD, the only innovation summit for distributors. And by the way, it's kind of unique. It's the only industry summit with no industry speakers. Check out all the details for the September 16th and 17th, 4th annual conference summit. I'm sure that you're going to want to be there with 150 other leaders from distribution. So let's jump in, however, right now to episode number 11 of Innovate for the Future, where I'm going to introduce you to a phenomenal innovator, a phenomenal leader within distribution by the name of Joe Nettemeyer. Joe Nettemeyer is the president and CEO of an industrial distributor by the name of Valin Corporation out in San Jose, California. And I got to tell you, I love the topic that Joe and I dive into here now as we take a look at this first component part of the innovative distributor with Joe, and that's all about vision. So as we dive into vision, what comes out into this conversation is the premise, think about it, that average is over. And because average is over, there truly is a call for innovation throughout distribution and throughout your business. You see, we do live in the age of disruption. There is this perfect storm of geopolitical movement, economic uncertainty, government influence, demographic shifts, and of course the technology revolution. So Joe Nettemeyer, again of Valin, better than most, Joe has the pulse of what these disruptive changes mean to business and to business in general. He's a deep, deep thinker. He is a voracious reader and a leader who continually peers into the future to understand the inflection points that will change how distributors and other businesses will do business. At the core of Joe's belief is that average is over. And as such, businesses have no alternative but to innovate. In this first of 5 discussions I have with Joe, he's going to share his deep insights into what happens to businesses that cling to the past, that cling to past successes, and the organizational structures that we know. He also paints a vision as to what we all must be considering in this age of disruption to create a relevant and a sustainable business. And as he says, if we don't, we'll die the death of 1,000 cuts. Let's jump right in with Joe. Hey, welcome back to Innovate for the Future. This is our 11th episode, and I have to tell you that I am just thrilled to introduce a good friend of mine and somebody that I have learned so much from over the years. Joe Nettemeyer is the CEO of Valin Corporation out of San Jose, California. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Dirk.
Yeah, I am just thrilled to have this and the following 4 conversations as we really drill into the model of the innovative distributor. Because, Joe, when I think about a distributor who really epitomizes the innovative distributor, who has a vision for the future, who really builds a culture of innovation and change and transformation, really has a value proposition and a business model that is differentiated and accomplishes all that through leadership. I think of Joe Nettemeyer and I think of Valin. And Joe, this first episode with you really focuses on that first component of the innovative distributor, and that's the importance of vision. Joe, I really believe that without vision, there is no innovation. If leadership doesn't have a new vision or some vision for a future reality that they really believe is possible with committed effort, that there will not be any change. There will not be innovation and transformation. Let's just start with that premise. Do you agree with my thinking there that without vision, there is no innovation, change, or transformation, Joe?
Yeah, I believe that is very true. However, I think the challenge is that you can visualize something, but your vision has to incorporate engagement of the people that you work with. And when I sat back 10 years ago and looked at the business, I was asking myself, am I getting the most out of the people involved? And the answer was no. And there was a couple of things that we had to develop to get a broader set of engagement. We went into becoming a 100% employee-owned company. We developed an educational process to lift the skills of the owners, because as we began teaching them, ownership brings responsibility. And that training was started at the local level by us hiring a director of education. She has her PhD in education, and she's developed a program for the continuous improvement of the skill sets that the people of Valin have, so that we can respond to a rapidly changing workforce. And then we've engaged in sending our high achievers into a master's program at Texas A&M that's based on using data and analytics to run the business with a more informed set of data. And we talk now about having data-driven discussions and not about anecdotes and ideas. And we are bending the curve now on developing a culture of innovation, but that really started 10 years ago, and we had to get everybody to have a stake. I want them to go home in the evening thinking about how they build themselves a prosperous future. And that's at the heart of our innovation. That was the vision. I think it gives us a strategic advantage. It provides us with a rallying point, because we're all in this together. And it gives us an edge in those entities that just exist for a financial return for the quarter. And I believe we have and will continue to gain share, because we're developing that culture of employee ownership and employee accountability.
Boy, you just smacked me over the head with this, if you don't mind, because I'm out there every day in front of groups, speaking and talking about, the change that I believe needs to happen in distribution. I'm talking about the need for vision, and I'm talking about this age of disruption that we live in, the constant change that's coming at us, through technology, through governmental regulations and everything else, right? But what you've done for me is you said, hold on, Dirk, step back, right? If you really want to talk about vision, maybe even before you look externally, you need to look internally and start crafting and setting a new vision for within your four walls, for within your organization. Is that what I'm hearing you say? That if you really want to craft a vision for the organization, start looking inside first?
Absolutely. I see people pursuing ideas without the people infrastructure to execute them all the time. And I call it the good idea that goes nowhere. And what we saw a decade ago was that for us to transform the business, we had to build a foundation of capability in our workforce, because our people are the differential. I see companies talking about it all the time, and I think they pay lip service to it. But we've committed to training and education and high expectation. And in return, through achievement, everyone receives a greater award in their growing ownership in the company. So it's all about tying everyone to a common goal. I see so many companies, their employees are paycheck people. I'm watching our industry being rolled up for short-term gain, not a long-term focus on how do I build a sustainable advantage. And I think in this culture, we're building a nucleus of people that'll capitalize on those that are just showing up for a check. We're instilling that competitive desire in people that we have to go out and want to win. It isn't good enough to be a 500 team anymore. We have to win every day.
Right. So let's talk about that just for a second. What you just said is it's not good enough to be a 500 team anymore. Built into that statement, it would suggest, if we take it literally, that being a 500 team some years ago was okay. You bring to my mind the article series by Thomas Friedman from the New York Times, who talks about average is over, right? That, in these times of rapid technological advances, governmental influences, economic shifts, if you will, that just doing a job in an average way is no longer going to provide an average lifestyle. But beyond that, Joe, and we're going to really drill into this culture that you've outlined in our next discussion. But what do you see? What do you see as you peer into the future that says if being a 500 organization, batting average of 500, was okay years ago, it's no longer okay, and it certainly is not going to be okay in the future. If you agree in the premise that the average is over, what do you see as you peer into the future? What changes? What dynamics are impacting business that we all need to be aware of that says, we do need to relook our business. We do need to relook our culture. We do need to relook at the engagement we're driving in our people?
I think it's not only we have things occurring now that are shaping the future. If you look at our economy for the last 5 years, we've been growing at about a 1% annual GDP rate. That is called marginal growth. In some places, I would argue that is depressed growth. An economy has to grow at 3% or better to provide opportunity. So in that environment, innovation and breaking out and separating yourself from the competition becomes an imperative. Now, the United States had a rare situation post-World War II. The world's industrial base had literally been bombed flat in that global conflict, with the exception of the United States. And everybody came back from the war, and we basically got a purchase order to rebuild the world. And we sat in the lap of luxury for about 25, 30 years until the basic industries in Japan and Germany caught back up in parity, and then other countries got to parity. And we began seeing intense competition on quality from manufacturers outside of the United States. It started in the basic things like steel. Then it migrated into automobiles, because you have to look at the vehicles of the 60s and 70s. They were, if you got to 60,000 miles and you didn't have a breakdown, you were really happy. And the Japanese began raising the bar on quality, and the Germans followed, and we were slow followers. But we had about 25 or 30 years where just being average and okay gave us everything we wanted. And you could go into the workforce with average skills, and we had such dynamic economic growth that tide lifted all boats. Now we're running into this, what I'd say is a flat economy, and I think we have an excess of everything. We're seeing it right now. I believe the country.
What do you mean by that, Joe? Sorry, what do you mean by that? We have an excess in everything.
How many locations can you go to today and look at shirts? How many locations, and if you're tired of doing that, how many websites can you go look at shirts?
Right.
And how fast can you have them delivered? In 2 days? You can have custom shirts made for you in about 2 weeks.
Yep.
How many different places can you go to get auto parts? How many different places can you go to buy a big screen television?
There is an excess of everything.
Can you go to buy a valve or a switch? We have an excess of everything. And in that mode, you have to find a way to provide unique value propositions that make you create top-of-the-mind awareness with your existing and prospective customers, that you are consistently their first or second choice in a buying decision. And if you don't create that, and you just average waiting for the phone to ring, you're going to die the death of 1,000 cuts.
No doubt. So this is amazing. So, you know, the story you told about how we had this purchase order to rebuild the world certainly paints the picture for us that this average is over, that we've got to raise the bar. You talk about the economy, right? Actually being one of depressed growth. And then you talk about this access to everything. Are there other, you know, those are enough, but are there other disruptive trends that you see, that you think about, that you lie awake, that you're reading about, that you're, you know, bringing into your business to manage it for the future, managing it for the future? Are there other disruptive trends that you're got a pulse on?
Well, I think the most significant one, and I see it every day sitting here in Silicon Valley, is that of the information technology revolution that's taking place. Yeah. Not only can you deliver content more effectively and more consistently, but you can scale it so much more rapidly than you could using our traditional tools of the past, which was sales personnel on the streets making calls. Yeah. And innovating that entire business process and how we sell is of paramount importance to us and is a high priority in this organization. And it's painful because we like to cling to our past successes.
That's tough.
And the organizational structures we know. So getting out of that is going to be the trap you have to escape if you want to stand out from those that want to cling to old business models that are no longer producing results. The old business models are growing about 1% a year.
You know, Joe, I talk about the need for leadership, and maybe we'll get into this in our 5th episode together, you know, about leaders needing to have the will, energy, and focus to really drive change. Because as you said, the example that you gave in terms of the Salesforce, re-engineering the Salesforce innovation that needs to take place, it's not going to be easy because people like to cling to the past and the like. So it's the importance to have the will, energy, and focus. But Joe, do you think that it's this IT revolution that is the core catalyst for you sitting back and saying, you know, the way we used to go to market, the way that we used to add value to our customers by having that outside sales team, if you will, you know, that had control of the content that was needed to share that knowledge. Is it this IT revolution as the key catalyst that's driving that change for you?
Yeah, I believe so. It's what it has done is...
Looking to break the gravitational pull of the status quo within your organization? Dirk Beverage is speaking across the country, helping companies like yours get better faster. Visit dirkbeverage.com to begin exploring how Dirk can craft the perfect presentation for your next meeting.
What it has done is it's revolutionized the way people want to be communicated with. Until about 2005, we had a trap set for anyone that wanted technical content of products. they were starting a project, they would give us a call, and as they started the whole thing, we had the opportunity to go out and make technical presentations and work very diligently to influence the specification. Today, they're not calling us for that information because it's readily available on the internet. So now the challenge is to be able to provide content in a compelling and stimulating manner that draws people to your website, that draws people into an online conversation and engagement. And we're investing aggressively in that because now, through technology, you can provide thought leadership on a much broader scale. And I believe that innovation is going to be about thought leadership, not about the products that you peddle.
So again, if you don't mind, so as you peer into the future, as you look, as to what it's going to require to remain competitive, part of your vision says thought leadership is going to be critical. So when you think of thought leadership, what does that mean to you, Joe?
Well, in our world, you have to move past selling product features and benefits and be in the mode of helping your prospective customers solve problems. I think in the industrial world for the last 30 years, we've had engineers designing products, and their concept of product development was look at a competitor's catalog and mimic what they had in the catalog. So if they have item XYZ, we need item XYZ. There was no market research done. There was no recognition that you might be the fifth or the sixth company to offer that device. It was just, we need one of those. And then they would come out with it and say, our brand is a premium brand, and we need to put a premium price on this. Well, if you're the fifth company in, and you put your premium brand on a product that you're not identified with, you very seldom get any traction. And what we did was waste hundreds of thousands of man-hours selling Me-Too products whose only real differentiation in the end could be price. So instead of leading, what we did was mimic. And mimicry is the path to commoditization and a lower price because you're adding very little value.
So that means thought leadership says what? Rather than mimicking, rather than being that fifth, does it say that part of your vision is that as an organization, Joe, you've got to be better at really understanding the market, better at really understanding the needs, drivers, desires, the wants of that market and of the customer and of the end user, and that you've got to create a conversation that they have not yet had to bring them to a different place? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Every one of our customers has a goal to try and improve their operation.
Yep.
We're all in the business of having to earn a profit if we want to finance the continued prosperity of our respective businesses. And if you sit down and you talk to your potential customers and you communicate with them, you know that they're wrestling with challenges that are presented to them with the goals that are established by the leadership of their respective businesses. They really don't have time to listen to you talk about the product features and benefits of the fifth company that created a product. What they want to be able to talk to you about is, I have this challenge and I'm trying to figure out how to do it. Can you help me? And what we're in the process of, we have been doing and we continue to do is, we're now realigning our marketing and sales efforts around industries and markets. We're spending time with customers, trying to understand where their pain points are, and working with them to develop solutions that help them increase whatever it is they're trying to do to make their business more efficient, whether that's on-site inventory management or it's a process improvement that gives them higher yield or faster throughput. It's a better job in data collection so that they can refine their processes by the use of advanced sensing devices. It's a lot of different things, but we have to become business partners and escape the old paradigm of selling product, features, and benefits. You know, in retrospect, it's pretty easy to sell product and features and benefits. It's a lot of work to understand where your customers are struggling. And if you're not a partner in helping them in the struggle, then you're a hindrance.
Love it. Great insight. If you're not a partner in the struggle, then you're a hindrance. So let me ask you this. I have a premise, Joe, and quite frankly, I think I'm getting some pushback on it. 50% of the individuals that I'm talking to agree with me, 50% don't. So I'd love your take on this. My premise is this. As we peer into the future, I think one of the paradigm shifts that distribution has to make is that, quote unquote, this is a relationship business. For years, everybody, and even today, everybody wants to tell me that this is a relationship business. And in my mind, that's myopic thinking. Just as you said, we need new ways to deliver content, right? Because our people can go online, our customers can go online and find all the content they want, the information about the features and benefits of the product. That's not hard. Well, I also believe that in the past, one of our competitive advantages as a distributor was the relationship our local outside salespeople had or inside salespeople had with that end user, or the relationship that we had with the suppliers, if you will. But what I'm thinking is when we continue to tell ourselves that this is a relationship business, I think it myopically puts us back to yesterday, where what you're telling us in the future is the business relationship is not going. The business relationship that we have with the customer is not going to be based on a traditional relationship. It's going to be based on thought leadership. It's going to be based on solutions. It's going to be based on customer centricity. It's going to be based on really becoming that business partner. So I know that's a long-winded statement, but I believe that this business is, quote unquote, no longer a relationship-driven business. It's a customer-centric driven business. It's a thought leadership-driven business. It's a solution-driven business. Do you? Again, that's half-baked. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with it? What are your thoughts around that?
Yes and no.
Okay, yeah.
I think that you're right in that I think the personal relationship, the importance of the personal relationship is becoming less important than it was, let's say, 20 years ago. But what I think is becoming more important is organization relationships. And that's how you use technology. We have to build that relationship using technology to make our customers' jobs easier to get done. Because let's really take a look at what's happening. When I first started selling in the 70s, you spent a lot of time chit-chatting about the weather, baseball, football, basketball, fishing, whatever it was that struck someone's interest. And businesses were overstaffed and people had time to sit around and talk. Today, where lean is been the watchword in both manufacturing and in the warehouse and distribution. And I think now lean is creeping into the front office activities. And people don't have time to chit-chat. So they're looking for quick answers, and they're looking for answers before 8 o'clock and after 5 o'clock. And you can use technology to provide them those answers. And if you become that go-to place that they can get the information they need to quickly make decisions, that's where your relationship is going to be built.
So, Joe, tell me about the organizational relationship. What do you mean by that? Yeah, so they need to be able to go to the place for the information to solve problems quickly, before 8 o'clock, after 5 o'clock. But I'm really intrigued by this concept of the organizational relationship. What do you mean by that?
So I think you have different types of relationships, and we're developing them online. And I'm watching what's happening in the various social media platforms, and I find it intriguing on how you can get scalability and create awareness. A salesperson can maybe make 4 or 5 quality sales calls a day. Through these networks, you can influence tens of thousands of people.
Yep.
Instantly. And if you help an organization achieve their goals, you become a critical partner. And it's no longer that one-to-one relationship that you had in the old selling model. It's that organization-to-organization relationship. And if you don't build an organizational relationship, you don't have sustainability, because we got a lot of personal relationships that are retiring in the next 10 years. And there will be a huge void, and the organizations that recognize they have to build relationships a different way will be the winners. I mean, look at how Amazon's building a relationship with their customer base. One-stop shopping. You don't have to go to the mall. Personally, for me, there's no greater water torture. Water torture would be preferable to going to a mall.
Right. No doubt about it. And that's what Amazon has done, right? That you've just told us, right? It's convenience. It's the best value, and they're there for you, and they're using technology to deliver all of that. And one of the things that I'm hearing you say as we peer into the future, this vision, because of all of these disruptive forces that you've talked about, everything from the economy to the access to everything, to the IT revolution that's going on, that really, if I'm hearing you right, the relationship we're going to be developing is really going to be at an intersection of that personal contact when it's needed, right? Either through inside or outside sales, engineering support, what have you, along with the technology that's going to be able to enhance our ability to touch our customers and their organizations when and where they need it as conveniently as possible, and as effectively as possible. So, Joe, this has been a phenomenal first conversation with you as I've asked you to peer into the future. One of the things I do love about you is you're constantly doing exactly that, peering into the future. You're really understanding the inflection points that businesses and distributors need to understand. And what I'd love to do is I'd love to come back next week with you. And now, based on this vision that you've got of the future, both internally for your organization and externally, let's take a look at this culture that you have begun and that you have developed and crafted, and how that culture is really helping you create that engagement you started off with, as well as a culture of innovation, change, and transformation. So, Joe, it's been a great 30 minutes. Look forward to the next conversation next Monday. But for right now, thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Dirk. It's always stimulating to have these conversations with you. You make me ponder the future, and I appreciate your ability to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. We'll see you next Monday. Thanks.
Own your future by downloading the transcript of today's show, reviewing the show notes, and participating in this episode's discussion thread at dirkbeverage.com. And while you're there, join our online community of leaders and innovators. Until next time, thanks for listening to Innovate for the Future with Dirk Beverage. Delivering a new voice, a new energy, and a new outlook.